May I?
No.
Thanks. Still drinking this mass-produced slop?
Well, I am, but please don't let me force you.
Why didn't you write to that chap I told you about? Bloke in Cape Nest sells this stuff by the barrel. Fraction of the price of this.
Well, I'm waiting.
I know what I'll do. I'll send you over a bottle.
What?
Well, half a bottle.
Yeah, please don't let's argue. It's the sentiment that counts. Do you realise this is the very first time in the whole of my life that you have ever offered to give me anything? The answer's no.
What answer?
Whatever you came to ask me for, the answer's no.
I wasn't going to ask you for anything. Just paying a social call.
The last time you paid a social call, you tried to get me to give you Meadow Pond, the best stretch of fishing in the county, for a paddling pool for that damn school of yours. The answer's no.
This kind of behaviour doesn't become you, Hadleigh. I find it particularly hurtful, as I've simply come here...
Uninvited, as usual. While we're on the subject, why don't you use the damn front door like everybody else?
Because I don't like to disturb your servants.
Who have been asleep for hours. I don't know why I'm explaining all this to you.
Ah! He who excuses himself accuses
Would you
himself.
spare me your damn psychology, drink my drink, and go?
Who's your tailor, Hadleigh?
I beg your pardon.
Your tailor, that's all I want to know.
Clifford and Syme, why?
Just wanted to know.
Why didn't you telephone?
I wanted to talk to you man to man. I mean, you know about this sort of thing. Man of fashion and all that.
Thank you.
Still, as you obviously can't spare the time to give an old friend a tip or two about what's gear in Carnaby Row...
What's what in where?
I'll, be pushing off. Wing collars. Are they still in?
Nope.
Pity. Just found a box of them in a trunk. And tailcoats, claw hammers. Are they,
No, as you well know.
Well, good night, Hadleigh. I said good night, Hadleigh.
All right. You terrible man. What is all this tailor nonsense about, eh?
May I?
Well, if you don't think it'll offend your delicate palate, you may, yes.
It's my public image, Hadleigh.
What's wrong with it?
Well, this suit, for example. Needs a bit old hat in it.
Well, it's meant to be, isn't it? Isn't that your Shavian touch?
Yes, but it doesn't do in the 70s. They want something more with it.
Who's there, the parents?
No, the people at the ministry.
I thought you didn't give a damn about the people at the ministry. Educational enemas, wasn't that your phrase?
Was it? Ha! Rather good. But it seems I may have to cultivate a contact or two in Whitehall. Things aren't as easy as they were for a truly progressive school like Neville Mead. I keep being inspected.
I'm not altogether surprised.
Well, there have always been complaints locally, the usual mischief-making. But now the ministry is likely to be involved. They've closed me down, you see.
Really? What for?
Well, it's just red tape, really. Got to be on their nonsensical register or something. I mean, once my name was enough. I mean, let's not be guilty of false modesty.
No, let's not.
My educational theories have been recognised throughout the civilised world. The bureaucrats are a different kettle of fish. Well, you know what they're like. The bane of all our lives.
Yes, I was one myself, you'll remember.
Oh. Well, I don't deny authority can be intelligently used. No, it's the pettifogging red tape merchants in the lower echelons that cause the trouble.
What trouble?
Oh, not trouble exactly. Not yet, but there will be. And give them an opening, they'll be swarming all over the place. How many cubic feet per child? How many pencil sharpeners? How many? How much? How often? Never what it's all for.
And nothing in the world is going to stop you telling me, is it?
The children. That's what it's all for. They're the ones that matter. And where they lead, we must follow. I mean, who are we, standing in the shambles of 2 world wars to legislate for their future?
What's all this got to do with Clifford and Syme?
Who?
My tailors.
Hadleigh. You haven't been listening. If I have to waste my time footling round the corridors of power, I have to dress the part. By the way, you don't happen to know anyone who might be helpful, do you?
Ah, no. I've never had to cultivate educationists, I'm happy to say.
Just wondered. Relative?
No.
Friend, perhaps?
No.
Well, think now, Hadleigh, think. I mean, these cocktail parties. Well, you're always dashing up to town, rubbing shoulders with the elite. You must have run into someone. Parliamentary Under-Secretary? The Minister, perhaps?
David Welsh? I'd run a mile. I was at school.
There you are. You see, old school chum. Why didn't you say so before? Right. Take a letter. Dear David. No, my dear David. An old and valued friend of mine, Harry Mortlake, the eminent educationist, of whom you have undoubtedly heard,
Mortlake.
tells...
Nothing in the world would induce me now or ever to ask anything of David Welch.
No, we all want our child or our children to win. And if somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. Hence emotional stress. Oh, we don't actually tell them it all depends on you. Pass and you're a success, fail and you're a failure for the rest of your life. But they get the message. They're remarkably quick on the uptake, as we all know. No, the long-term answer is to do away with examinations altogether. But that'll take time. In the short term, there is something we can all do here and now. Take the competitive element out of education. We're trying to, but we need your help. And now, if there aren't any more questions, I'd just like to thank you all for coming along this evening. It helps me, you know, makes my job seem more worthwhile. Thank you. Charlotte, isn't it?
Anne, actually, Anne Hepton.
No. Charlotte's mum. Ted Crawford, education officer.
Oh, yes, of course, hello.
Yeah, Charlotte came to us from St Mary's C.V., Ealing. Excellent reports. Maths weak, unfortunately.
Yes, I'm afraid so. I can't see her following in her mother's footsteps. I'm an accountant.
Ah.
Still, I suppose it's a bit soon to be worrying about that.
Worrying, yes. Doing something about it, no.
I've always felt that Charlotte was more creative.
There's no reason why she shouldn't be. And be good at sums, too. I'm sure her mother is. Yeah, you know, teaching's changed a lot since we were... Well, since even you were at school.
Yes, and not always for the better, I sometimes think.
Why's that?
Oh, I don't know. The whole system's getting so impersonal.
Yes, I think that's the greatest danger.
Do you?
Well, take Westdale Comprehensive. In most ways, it's a model school. Most modern buildings in the north, first-rate staff. But we don't know all the answers yet. We're bound to make mistakes. We've got to find the ideal balance between freedom and responsibility. Well, I'm just doing all I can to keep mistakes to a minimum.
It's the sheer size of the comprehensive that I find off-putting. Oh, I suppose I'm like all parents, really. I want a fair education for everyone, but I want my child to have every advantage.
So you wouldn't want Charlotte to go to a comprehensive?
Oh, it's early days yet. Plenty of time for me to look around. I certainly don't want her to go to some academy for young ladies. But maybe a private school with more progressive ideas, like... Now, what was the name?
Oh, no, you're not thinking of Neville Mead.
Well, yes, there was an article the other
Yes,
day.
that colour supplement. You know, that old Charlotte and Mortlake's a genius for backing into the limelight.
Oh, I thought he had some rather good ideas.
He's got a good selling line, I grant you.
Aren't you being a little unfair? Just because the school's outside the state system?
No, it's not that, but Mortlake seems to think that simply by waving a banner labelled progressive, he can just shrug off any criticism. Developing initiative, he says, as if this absolves him from the need to teach his children anything. And he charges a fortune, just to house kids in a rural slum. Do you know that we at Westdale, we're actually paying out of the ratepayers' pockets to send a couple of problem children to Neville Mead? At least I'm putting a stop to that. I think we've done our duty, don't you? How about a drink?
All right. And that room at the top of the stairs, I thought I'd turn that into a sort of dressing room. That is, if I can get permission from... James? You haven't heard a word.
Yes, of course I have. Gone.
What was I saying?
You were talking about your cottage, the kitchen?
I've been talking about my bedroom for the last 5 minutes.
Yes, that's what I said, your bedroom. Fascinating subject.
Well, you'd hardly think so. For all the attention you've been giving me, I might as well be Whistler's mother.
Now, where on earth did you hear that?
Comes up in a song, doesn't it?
No wonder I go out with you. You're so extraordinarily well-read.
Yes, but why do I go out with you?
I don't know, really. My incomparable charm, perhaps?
And flawless modesty.
Well, there's not really much competition here, is there?
Don't you be too sure.
Oh, really? Who?
Ted Crawford, as a matter of fact.
Ah, yes, a funny little man with a beard and red hair.
Oh, I think he's rather attractive.
He works at the town hall, doesn't he?
He's the education officer. Not, I imagine, that would mean anything much to you.
And why on earth should it mean anything to you?
I'm a parent.
Ah, I see.
I met him at a PTA meeting.
Rock buns and instant coffee?
And some very good advice.
Such as?
Well, I'll know where not to send Charlotte. Neville Mead, for instance.
Really? I'd have thought that's rather your sort of school. I mean, it's progressive, emancipated.
Yes, well, so did I, until I heard a few home truths about Mr. Mortlake's little gold mine.
Gold mine? Is that what Crawford told you?
£120 a term for day pupils isn't exactly chicken.
Now, look, he may be a lot of things, but Mortlake is not a profiteer. What else did he tell you?
Why are you so interested?
Oh, it doesn't matter. Well, no, I'll tell you if you like. Mortlake wants me to write a letter to the minister. I was at school with him, you see. He seems to think the minister's going to come down on him like a ton of bricks. I didn't really understand why, but... Well, now it's becoming clear. If Crawford's out to get him, he's going to need all the help he can get.
Would you seriously consider writing to the minister?
I wouldn't have, no, but I think I might now.
Just because you don't like Crawford?
No, I don't like Crawford, but I'm not 100% behind Mortlake either. I just think he's got some good ideas. And I'm against the Ted Crawfords of this world trying to stop him.
Oh, what's the school really like?
Well, it's the usual progressive sort of place, you know. Not much discipline, voluntary timetable.
The buildings, the facilities.
Well, I'm not quite sure what facilities are. Lavatories, you mean? Well, I suppose they're pretty ropey, I don't know. He lets the kids run wild, you see. His idea is that the place is their home, not his. At least, that's the theory.
You have been there, then?
Good God, no. How else could I be so dogmatic about the place?
James, if you're to write a letter to the minister, don't you think you should have a little first-hand evidence?
No, I don't think so. I have a feeling that anything Crawford is against can't be wholly bad. Still, there's nothing wrong with a couple of hours on-the-spot investigation. You game?
Well, yes, I suppose, if it were possible.
Thank you. Of course it's possible. There's nothing simpler. Tomorrow morning?
All right. I could be free at 12. I'll call for you.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Just leave me a little self-respect. I'll call for you at the office.
I still think I must be out of my mind to come here at all.
Yes, I quite agree. It's so much easier to make up your mind without first-hand evidence, don't you think? Shall we go in? Excuse me. Hey, lad. Where's the headmaster? Do you know?
I think Harry's in his office. Round the corner, third on the right.
Oh, good morning. I wasn't expecting visitors.
Do I sense we've come at an inconvenient moment?
Not at all. On the contrary, it may turn out to be particularly convenient. I was just girding myself for a surprise visit from our Mr. Crawford.
A surprise visit?
Oh, I have my spies, you know. Crawford's none too popular in the education office.
Yes, this is Mrs. Hepton. She is a close friend of Mr. Crawford.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do sit down.
She's also looking for somewhere to send her little girl.
Excellent. 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 See for yourself. That's what I always say to parents. Come and see for yourself. Opinion is welcome. It's apathy I have to fight.
I should have thought you'd have found a little more apathy on the part of the Education Office a blessing at the moment.
Oh, I suppose Crawford's perfectly entitled to withdraw the authority of his children if he wants to.
Won't there be a bit of a blow financially? I mean, don't the council pay full whack?
Oh, yes.
I didn't know you had any non-paying pupils.
Just the 3. The others pay on a sliding scale. We take from the rich and give to the poor.
Robin Hood, you mean?
That's it.
Yes, well, if you don't mind my saying so, you look a little more like Friar Tuck. Is that what you mean by your new image?
The bandit of Sherwood Forest would hardly go down well in Whitehall.
Thank you.
That's what I can't forgive your Mr. Crawford, sneaking to the ministry.
Mr. Mortlake, this is hardly the 4th form at Blackfriars.
Greyfriars and Greyfriars. It's Bob Cherry and his chums. Well, perhaps you're a little too young.
My schoolboy phraseology offends you, Mrs. Hepton. I don't think there's anything much wrong with the average schoolboy's code of honour, do you?
It's a little outmoded for the progressive, don't you think?
Well, nothing is outmoded so long as it works. I don't encourage my children to come sneaking to me about each other, and I object when someone else tells tales about me behind my back.
Oh, I see. You fear the minister might not share your view of a schoolboy's code of honour. Yeah, well, you're probably right. I doubt that he's changed much in 20 years. But I don't quite see how you square the old boy net with a schoolboy code of honour.
Well, I don't. But we all have to grow up sometime, even if the result is seldom an improvement.
He's here, Harry.
Oh, thank you,
Coming
Frank.
up the drive now.
Frank, who are you with this morning?
Oh, Freddie, geography. I got a bit fed up there.
I see, fair enough. Righto. Well, it looks as though my little surprise is coming up on schedule.
Would you like us to leave?
No, please stay. I'd rather like to give Mr. Crawford a surprise in return.
James, I really think we ought to go.
Well, you can if you like. I'm going to stay and see the fun.
Come. Why, Mr. Crawford, what a pleasant surprise. Do come in. Mr. Hadleigh, I think you know.
Yes, sir.
And this is
Mrs. Hepton, of course.
Yes.
Yes, we met before.
Well, now, what can I do for you? If it's private business, I'm afraid you'll have to excuse me for a few minutes.
Oh, it's nothing that can't wait, Mr. Mortlake. I happened to be passing. I thought I'd drop in, but as I see you're busy,
Oh, of course, your letter. About the boys your predecessor sent me. I think I have it here. I shall be sorry to see them go. I think we've made some progress, particularly with Billy Roberts.
Yes, what is this I hear about Billy Roberts leaving?
I'm sorry, I don't quite see what...
What business it is of mine, you mean?
Well, since you put it that way, yes. In any case, I regarded the matter as strictly confidential.
Well, I haven't discussed it with anyone, I can assure you, Mr.
Oh,
Crawford.
it doesn't matter. Soon be public property anyway. Do I understand, Mr. Hadleigh, that you have some interest in this boy?
Well, yes, the boy's father's a tenant of mine, and he's worried about him, that's all. I gather that if Mortlake can't cope, it'll be the approved school.
I don't think you quite understand it. Mr. Mortlake's ability to cope has nothing to do with the matter. I am not willing that public money should be spent in this way. I'm withdrawing the boy.
You're withdrawing the boy?
Yes.
May I ask why?
I'm sure Mr. Mortlake would prefer to explain the matter to you himself. No doubt his viewpoint will be rather different from mine.
Oh, please don't feel you must spare my feelings, Mr. Crawford. Since Mr. Hadleigh is kind enough to take an interest, I've no objection to your discussing the matter with him.
As you know, the educational system of this country requires certain minimum standards of accommodation, teaching, recreational facilities. They're not even now as high as they could be, but they are there. And Neville Mead just doesn't come up to any of them. There are no trained teachers. Children sleep in barns and listen huts. Boys and girls use the same toilet facilities. I've been deeply disturbed by the reports of my inspectors on this school, not to mention the numerous complaints about the behaviour of pupils.
So you decided to withdraw the boys, did you?
Yes.
And don't you think that's where your duty in the matter ends?
Not at all. As education officer, it's my job to see that all local children get a proper education, whatever sort of school they go to. If I don't consider they're getting it, there are various further steps I may be forced to take.
Forced? Well, you threaten parents with prosecution for sending their children to me and say you're forced to do it?
Sure, it won't come to that, not if everybody agrees to be reasonable.
But how can the parents be prosecuted? Surely in a case like this, they're the injured party.
Ah, well, you see, the state, in its wisdom, allows parents to decide what form of education their children shall have, but it reserves the right to prosecute them if they don't take the approved decision.
Oh, now that's hardly fair, Mr. Hadleigh. You will agree that the state must reserve the right to prosecute parents who don't give their children a proper education.
But that's hardly the same thing as prosecuting parents for sending their children to a school that you don't like.
It's not a question of whether I like it. There's not even a pretence of teaching here. Do you know, children actually get rewarded for skipping classes and swearing and stealing.
It's one of my little methods, Mrs. Hepton. Oddly enough, reward seems to worry them. It's far more effective than punishment.
Well, it's not my idea of an adequate education, and I'm sure it won't with the ministers either.
Now, let me get this straight. If I decided to send Charlotte here, I could be taken to court. Well, I'd teach her myself if I wished.
Only if you can prove you're properly qualified to do so. You can't have your children educated by just anybody. And certainly not by some cranky outfit with no adequate facilities and no properly qualified teachers.
Like mine, Mrs. Hepton.
Just as bad as not educating a child at all. In fact, in my view, it's worse.
Yes, I think you've made that clear now, don't you?
Yes?
It's time for the trial, Harry.
So it is. Sorry.
Trial?
The school council. I shall have to go if you'll excuse me.
Trial? I don't much like the sound of that, Mr. Mortlake.
But why not? It's a perfectly democratic process.
But it's a bit of an ordeal for a child, isn't it?
Don't worry, Mrs. Hepton. This time I am the accused.
Shoo, what for?
Well, it's rather a long story. My custodians are waiting. If you're interested, come along. I'm sure the council won't object if I don't.
Yeah.
Hey, lovely, where did you get him? School, here at school. There's an enemy.
That saw, there's no adequate guards. You know, a factory running a machine like that would have the Board of Trade down on it like a ton of bricks.
First, I have a request. As you see, I have 3 visitors with me who would be interested to see how our council works. If you agree, of course.
I don't believe we would have any objection, Harry. Anyone here want to raise an objection? Very well, then. The visitors are welcome. Frank, Carol, Matthew, make room for our guests.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello.
Right, Harry. The charge is that last Wednesday you borrowed Vanessa's bicycle without permission, rode it over to the chemistry lab and left it there. When Vanessa had to go into town, she couldn't find it and had to walk. She has brought the complaint. That's right, isn't it, Vanessa?
Yes, I didn't mind Harry borrowing it, but, well, he should have asked me, or at least told me afterwards and returned it.
You've heard the charge, Harry. Do you deny it? I should tell you there are witnesses.
No, I don't deny it. I certainly borrowed Vanessa's bicycle. There were, I think, mitigating circumstances. My own is having a new front wheel fitted, which was necessary after Tom's little experiment in perpetual motion. And, well, I was late and it was raining. I would have asked her if she'd been anywhere in sight, but she wasn't, and, well, I didn't think she'd mind.
Oh, I didn't, Harry. Really, I didn't.
Yes, we accept that, Harry. But what about the worse offence of not returning the bike and making things difficult for Vanessa?
Guilty as charged, I'm afraid. I've no defence at all. I just forgot. I've already apologised to Vanessa, and I would like to do so again in front of you all. It was a very inconsiderate thing to do.
I see. Well, there doesn't seem to be any argument about the facts of the case. Do any of the council have any questions?
I think Harry should have borrowed a boy's bike.
Why?
Well, he should, shouldn't he? Harry's a man.
Do you mean he might have damaged Vanessa's bike?
Yeah.
Sue has a point, Harry. Did you think about that?
No, I must admit I didn't. It was thoughtless of me. I just took Vanessa's bike because it was the nearest my size.
All right, Sue. Anyone else? Bob?
I don't think it's necessarily wrong to borrow a bicycle. I mean, without asking. Well, sometimes you have to, and, well, you think the person wouldn't mind, if you could ask him.
Her or her?
No, what I mean is, couldn't we have some sort of board up in the bicycle shed? So that if you had to borrow a bicycle, well, you could leave a note so that people would know.
Great, or a blackboard. Then you could write out the note when you brought it back.
That seems like a good idea. We could fix up something like that, couldn't we, Harry?
Certainly. I don't know why we haven't done it before.
Right. Now all we have to consider is what to do about the most serious part of the charge. Lack of consideration for others. Harry has apologised. Do you accept that apology, Vanessa? After all, you were the injured party.
Yes. I was a bit annoyed at the time, but, well, you know.
In that case, Harry, there is nothing left but for you to pass sentence.
Well, I think perhaps
excuse
if
me, I don't quite understand. It doesn't seem to me to be very democratic that the headmaster should be called on to pass sentence even when he himself is the culprit.
Only when he himself is the culprit. In our trials, the accused, if he is found guilty, has to sentence himself. Punishment is effective only if self-imposed. All right? Well, Harry?
I think perhaps if I clean and oil Vanessa's bike for her, and if I undertake to walk everywhere in the grounds for the next fortnight, just to remind myself what a sweat it is without a bike.
Very well. Is everyone agreed?
I think a fortnight's too long.
A week, then. Right, Harry. A week without a bike. Any other points? Court is dissolved.
Hello, Billy.
Morning, Mr. Hadleigh.
Ah, you probably don't know. Well, perhaps you do. This is Mr. Crawford and Mrs. Hepton, Billy Roberts.
Oh.
How do you do?
Hello, Billy.
I hear you may have to leave here.
Yes, Harry told me. I've talked to Dad and he says he may be able to manage for me to stay on as a day boy.
Would you like that?
Yes, but I don't like to ask Dad. He's had a bad year on the farm.
Yes, I know.
Well, I've got a class now. I must go. Bye, Mr. Hadleigh, Mrs. Hepton, Mr.
So, that's the famous Billy Roberts.
I can't imagine him as a likely candidate for approved school.
Well, maybe not, but if he'd come up just once more, that's where he'd have gone.
What is it, Tony?
Telephone for you, Harry.
Well, I'm a bit tied up at the moment. Do they say who?
Eglinton, or something like that.
I see. Would you excuse me?
Yes, of course.
How long has Billy Roberts been here?
Just under a year, as a matter of fact.
A neat little demonstration, Mr. Hadleigh, if a bit too pat. But what I don't understand is, why are you on Mortlake's side in all this?
Yes, James, why?
Well, I could say it's just natural perversity, but I don't think it's that. No, I don't believe 100% in what Mortlake says and does, but I don't see why he shouldn't be allowed to do it. Look, if he were Education Minister and wanted all schools to be like this one, I'd be dead against him. But I think there's room for... Oh, I don't know. I'm just against enforced uniformity.
A not unfamiliar high Tory argument.
But just because it's familiar, does that make it any less true? Look, he may have something, and if he does, how are you going to find out unless you give him a chance to test his ideas? Now, I know they don't work for everybody, but they do work for some, and if they do work, now why shouldn't they be let work?
Yes, after all, Shakespeare and Newton managed all right without trained teachers and water closets.
True, but in spite, not because of. Oh, some reasonably educated, reasonably responsible adults may come out of Neville Mead, I don't deny, but if a genius or a saint comes out of a slum, we don't take that as an argument for the preservation of slums.
Maybe you don't, but you do test a process by its end product. You don't do it by counting wash basins and the number of teacher training certificates.
Well, he's done wonders with Billy Roberts.
Right.
And I must say, if that's a fair example of what he can do, then the very least he deserves is the benefit of the doubt.
And if there's anything I can do to help him get it, I jolly well will.
I see.
Well, you seem to be getting along splendidly.
Yes, well, I've got rather a busy day ahead of me at the office. Would you like a lift, Mrs. Hepton?
Oh, no, thank you, Mr. Crawford. I think I'll stay on a little while. That is, if it's all right with you, Mr. Mortlake.
Certainly. Stay to lunch, if you don't mind mucking in with the rest of us.
Thank you.
Well, I'll be off then.
Goodbye, Mr. Crawford. You will come and see us again soon, won't you?
I do hope I didn't say anything to upset him.
Oh, whatever gave you that idea? And what are you going to do now?
I've told him, young lady. He's going to write a letter to the minister.
We just thought we'd come and say goodbye. What?
That was Edward, her elephant.
Yes, of course it was. I can't think why I didn't recognise it.
Oh, you wouldn't have seen him before. I'm only allowed to look after him while Peggy's getting his lunch.
You must have quite a menagerie here.
They come and go. Edward's only been with us a few days. He takes fright rather easily. That's why we're not allowed to talk much when he's around. Damn. Excuse me.
Yes.
Mortlake? Oh, yes, I'm sorry I had to break off just now. I had to look after an elephant. Well, really, I've nothing to add. Heaven knows I'm the last man to throw in the towel, but I do speak from experience. No, I'm sorry. At 17, he's too old. It's as simple as that. Well, at that age, he could be a disruptive influence, and I have got my other... Look, I really have got to go. Now, would you excuse me? So am I. Really, Hadleigh, you people seem to think all you have to do is wave a checkbook, throw in a double-barrel name or two. Trouble? If I've told that woman once, I've told her 100 times. It just won't work. After a certain age, the mould has been cast. A boy's been in and out of a dozen schools. Of course, it's a mess. And now they expect me to pick up the pieces.
So you do admit there are some cases that are hopeless?
No, not at all. He's not a child anymore. It'd be a full-time job to straighten him out. I can't take the risk. It's my community as a whole I have to consider.
It's the one rotten apple?
Well, I wouldn't put it that way. But each child has to bring something to the community as well as getting something out of it. It's give and take. I can't afford to accept anyone who's just a taker.
A checkbook notwithstanding.
Mrs. Hepton, we have something here money can't buy.
I told you we don't have any secrets. You should know that. Excuse me, Harry.
Yeah?
She said Annie doesn't want to go out with me anymore.
Well, what made you say that, Vanessa?
It's the truth. Oh, she's a liar.
Well, do you want me to ask Andy?
Oh, no.
Well, what do you want me to do?
Well, make her stop telling lies.
I'm not telling lies.
Unless I ask him, I shan't know, shall I? And even if I do ask him, I might not tell you the truth either.
Well, you wouldn't tell a lie, Harry. You couldn't.
I could, Vanessa, and I would, rather than hurt someone. Wouldn't you?
Oh, she was just making trouble. She's jealous.
I'm not. I don't care who he goes out with.
Then why did you interfere?
I don't know. Well, I just wanted to get my own back on Jean. She was being bitchy.
Oh, she can't even take a joke.
And what about you? Why did you come to me instead of going to the school council?
Well, she wouldn't have minded that. She minds what you say.
It's not true, and you're not to tell him.
Extraordinary. What was all that about, I wonder?
Oh, I don't think you have to look very far, Mr. Mortlake.
Hmm?
I rather think Vanessa has a crush on you.
Feminine intuition?
Something like that.
Fascinating. Good thinking, Mrs. Hepton. You may well be right.
Well, we'll leave you to mull it over.
Now, you will keep him up to the mark, won't you? Letters don't write themselves.
Goodbye. Come on. You are.
And do you know they've even built a filter for a swimming pool? Mind you, they haven't got the pool yet.
Oh, don't worry. He's working on it.
And the artwork was the best I've ever seen. And there wasn't a miserable face among those children. Oh, James, you're insufferable.
You do go a bit far, don't you? I mean, only yesterday he was some sort of latter-day squeers lining his pockets at the expense of the poor deluded parents, and now all of a sudden he's Albert Schweitzer. You want to hand over the whole educational system to it?
Well, I was only repeating what Crawford told me, and now I've seen for myself. I mean, obviously conditions at Nevillemead are hardly ideal, but when you see what...
That's for your appeal fund.
You really are the most contrary man. Poor me inconsistent. Who was it who promised to move heaven and earth to preserve Nevillemead?
Yes, well, I did go a bit far. I just wanted to upset Crawford, that's all.
Was that all it was for?
No. No, it wasn't. I don't want to see Nevillemead closed down. I think, on balance, it does a good job. But on balance, you get so carried away.
I don't think anyone could have any doubt after seeing Mortlake's work at first hand.
Do have a chocolate, will you? Maxwell?
Sir?
Nevillemead. Is it well thought of round here?
Well, sir, some do and some don't.
A lot of local kids go there, don't they?
Some folks have more money than sense.
Do you know anyone with a child at Nevillemead?
Yes, there's the Jones at Longmeadow, and the Phelps boy was there for a year or two, and Roberts. His Billy's still there, isn't he, sir?
Yes.
Do they have any complaints?
They don't have much room to, do they?
How do you mean?
Well, no one else will have them. Layabouts, troublemakers, nutcases, they all end up at Nevillemead.
Well, isn't it a good thing that somebody takes the bad cases?
Well, what good does it do them up there? They just hang about, no control. Boys and girls together, running about stark naked half the time. And the teachers aren't much better. Only last year one of the masters was had up for exposing himself.
Maxwell, he was playing tennis in the nude. Now, that's a very different thing. It's one of mine, as he knows very well.
One of yours?
It's one of my cases. It was some old lady who had to stand on a chair in a top attic with a pair of binoculars to see anything at all.
Well, there's a lot of folks round here thinks that's no proper way to be going on. Puts ideas into the kids' heads. It ought to be closed down, if you ask me.
There you are. Somebody who's seen for himself and doesn't approve. Over to you.
Not fair, James, not fair.
Why not? All right, think about it. Why not?
You know very well why not. I I can't argue in front of Maxwell.
Of course you can, I do.
Well, it's different for you. Anyway, on a subject like education, Maxwell belongs to an older generation.
Oh, I see. You mean he hasn't got the intelligence to argue at your sophisticated level, huh?
That's not what I was going to say at all. It's just that I think to judge someone like Mortlake, you need a special knowledge.
Well, Crawford's got special knowledge. He's a certified expert in education.
Yes, but that doesn't equip him to judge special cases. His viewpoint is too narrow. Oh, but what am I arguing with you for? You know all this as well as I do. You're just trying to cloud the main issue.
And what is the main issue?
What are you going to do now?
Am I going to do anything at all?
Write a letter to the minister?
Why is it that everybody wants me to write a letter to the minister? And you'd be the first person to shout abuse of privilege if I tried to pull strings to get somebody into Eton.
That's hardly the same thing.
Why? Because one is a cause you approve of and one you don't? Are you trying to say that the end justifies the means?
Oh, James, will you stop fencing with me? You know I'm right and you just don't want to admit it.
Am I fencing? Have you thought what would happen to Crawford's career if I wrote to David Welsh?
Well, he just made a mistake.
Mistake? Look, anybody can make a mistake. If you're clever enough, you can profit by it. But there's one thing no government official can afford to be, and that is a nuisance. I can just hear the permanent undersecretary now. Crawford? Wasn't there some fuss? Didn't somebody write a letter to the minister? He'd be dead as mutton. Why are you looking at me like that?
Oh, nothing. The sentiments are fine. They just sound rather strange coming from you. This sudden concern for Crawford's future strikes me as distinctly fishy.
All right. Crawford put himself into the firing line. If he gets shot, that's bad luck. Well, shall we just say I have my own reasons for not wanting to ask a favour of David Welsh?
Yes, I know. You didn't get on with him at school, but you're not asking him for a favour. You're just telling him something he'd want to know.
Perhaps I ought to sign it Well-Wisher, Tunbridge Wells.
Oh, James, why do you have to make so many difficulties about something so simple? It's so easy for you. A man in your position has...
I am not a man in my position. Look, just because I was at school with a fella 20 years ago, everybody seems to think I'm at their beck and...
I sometimes think you're more of a Puritan than I am. Why do you have to do everything the hard way?
Alas, privilege is not what it was.
No, it isn't. But there are still times when all you have to do is lift your little finger and you won't. It's as if you have to keep proving to yourself that you can do it on your own. Now, why?
And the snappy cat's answer? Insecurity? All right. I'm a psychological mess. Thank you very much for telling me. It's very kind of you. You must draw me a picture of myself one day, but please not today. I think I'd rather like that letter to David Welsh. In fact, I know I would. Please, miss, can I be excused?
I'm not being this shut up, Harry. I'm not.
1, 2, but you know what Harry always says.
I said shut up.
Those against. Motion carried.
I bet he'll be upset when he hears about this.
Oh, I don't think he will. I mean, he always said we should make our own decisions, and, well, this is our own decision, isn't it?
At least you ought to tell him first.
Oh, just because you're leaving, you don't care.
I do care. Why won't you listen?
We took a vote. It's what we all think is right.
It isn't. It'll mess everything up.
No, it won't. I mean, everyone will know we back Harry up, and well, they'll leave him alone, won't they?
Oh, that's right. Now, come on.
But we've got to talk to Harry.
Don't take any notice of him.
So, you can see what this is going to do to Harry, can't you? You voted against.
But it's the majority.
Yes, they've decided wrong. Harry wouldn't want us to do anything we thought was wrong.
No, if the majority decides, we all have to do it, don't we? That's democracy.
Oh, come on, sir.
Wait a minute.
I can't. I'm sorry.
You're mad.
A gentleman to see you, sir, Mr. Crawford.
Crawford? All right, show him in, Maxwell.
Yeah. Will you come this way, sir, please?
Yes, thank you.
Well, so we meet again.
I think you know why I'm here, Mr.
No,
Hadleigh.
I'm afraid you have the advantage of me.
I've come to congratulate you.
On?
Oh, now, come on. You know perfectly well I've been advised by the ministry to lay off Mortlake. What? Oh, it was all dressed up. An educational figure of international repute. Inadvisable at this time. Certain technical shortcomings might be overlooked considering the value of the enterprise. But the message was clear enough. They don't like it, so lay off.
I suppose it would be absolutely pointless to tell you that I had nothing to do with any of this.
Well, if you didn't, I'd like to know who did.
Yes, so would I. Will you excuse me? Hello, Mortlake. I have Crawford here with me. Now, he seems to think...
Yes, well, as I said, a word in the right quarter works wonders.
What word, and in what quarter?
Well, I just happen to remember Lady Edgerton's little problem. The loathsome miles.
But you said you'd never take that boy. Too old, you said, too disruptive. You said, I heard you.
Did I? Quite forgotten. Anyway, let's say I've had second thoughts. I can't think what possessed me to turn the poor lad down like that. Must be getting old or something.
And the fact that Maggie Edgerton's uncle is a close friend of David's and also a fellow minister, that had absolutely nothing to do with it, I suppose. Yes, yes, I had quite forgotten that convenient memory of yours. Well, I suppose I can stand down now, can I? Well, you won't be needing my services anymore, will you? Not for the moment. All right, goodbye. Well?
I'm still not satisfied.
Well, you needn't think I am.
Thank you for sparing me a little...
Your valuable time, you were going to say. Please, don't mention it. What else have I got to do?
Good night.
What's wrong with the front door?
Too civilized. I'm that lovable old eccentric. Remember? May I?
Well, don't let me force you, will you?
Just thought I'd pop over and say thanks.
How very unlike you.
Oh, come now, Hadleigh. What could be more natural than I should want to thank you for all you've done?
I can't think of anything less natural, particularly as I haven't done anything, have I?
No. No, I suppose you haven't. Actually, there is something.
Oh, no, thanks. I've had enough of one.
It's not about the swimming pool. We can leave that aside for the moment.
Oh, well, that's nice, isn't it?
It's, well, it's all rather complicated. I better start at the beginning.
Mr. Crawford,
you see,
you, sir.
But again?
They said I'd find you here, Mortlake. Naturally. Well, it won't work this time. The police are involved. You realise that?
Is that really necessary?
I've taken the appropriate steps, steps that even you can't reverse, Mr. Hadleigh.
Yes, would you mind telling me
we
what
don't
this is
want
all
to go
about?
into it all now. After all, it's no concern of Mr. Hadleigh.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. However, since you've chosen to involve
you
them...
and just tell me what the police are involved
Oh,
in.
no, you can't expect me to believe
I want
it.
a straight answer to a straight question.
A gang of Mortlake's hooligans wrecked my office this evening.
How do you know it's my children?
Because they were kind enough to paint a message on the wall. Mortlake's Marauders.
Well, there you are. A prank. A harmless prank. And I must say, a perfectly natural group response to a threat from outside.
Did you know about this?
Yes, of course he did.
Not in advance, no. Naturally, if they had asked me, I should have counseled moderation.
Oh, you don't expect me to believe
shut
for one...
up. Yeah, just shut up. I believe it. He may be a rogue, but he's not a fool.
Yes, of course, you'll believe it. Anything to exonerate an old pal. Well, it'll take more than a word in the right quarter this time, believe you me.
Mr. Hadleigh and I haven't always seen eye to eye, but I think you'll find his experience on the bench will help him see this bit of horseplay in proper perspective.
Ah, so that's how it is it? Well, I'll bid you good night. I've got a lot to do. Hadleigh, I'd watch Mortlake if I were you.
Fascinating thing is, they acted as a group to protect their community. Most heartening. I've really got through to them.
Rubbish. It was a simple act of vandalism.
Oh, come on, Hadleigh. You can't judge my kids by the outmoded standards of an oppressive society.
I can, and I do, and so will the police, and so will the bench. Was the Roberts boy involved?
No. Tried to stop them, actually. Disappointing response. On his part, I mean. Doesn't really seem to have integrated like the rest. We'll have to have a little session, Billy and I. Hadleigh, if this nonsense should go so far as a hearing, you will have a word.
With the other JPs, you mean? Tell them to lay off, because we've got in our midst an educational community gallantly pointing the way to the brave new world.
Yes, something like that. I'll let you have some notes.
No, you won't. Would you understand, just once and for all, that there's absolutely no difference between what your boys did and what the football hooligans and the phone box wreckers do week in and week out? There are no extenuating circumstances. Now, do I make myself clear?
Admirably. And if society demands its pound of flesh, its victim, I'm ready.
Oh, yes, you're ready, all right, to make another of your grand gestures. Society, get stuffed.
Get stuffed, rather nice, that, vigorous.
Now, you'll be all right, because you're just one of society's state-registered, lovable old eccentrics. But what about them?
Who?
The kids you profess to love so much. What about them?
My back is broad.
We're not talking about your back. We're talking about the kids. They have to live in this society that you despise so much.
I've taught them to reject society's outmoded standards.
Well, you can afford to, can't you? But they can't, with the world as it is.
We must change it. I have to some degree.
Your own little corner, of course you have. But what about that? You haven't even taught them the basic facts of survival.
Survival? Do you really think that's what it's all about?
Of course it is. It's lesson 1.